Right, okay, thank you. I do take full credit for the snappy title of the document. Okay, so I'm Michael Chang. I'm from the Town and Country Planning Association, and we helped and worked together with Liz and her team on this document. My presentation is very, very short, actually. Now, I know that we have a workshop later this afternoon, so I'll go into a bit more detail. But I'd like to kind of explain briefly how we got to the final product and then potentially one resource from there that might be really interesting for those who won't be joining us for the workshops later on this afternoon. But I do lead on the health and planning work at the TCPA across the whole of the UK, and that's it's great to be doing stuff in Wales because we're quite English centric, so it's quite good to be doing stuff outside of England. So in terms of document then, so I'm really pleased to be launching this document today with the Wales Health Impact Assessment Support Unit and Public Health Wales. It is available online now, so if you go onto the website, you'll find it. It doesn't have its own web page, but it will do in due course, but just bear with a new design on the website. But the document really came about because, as Liz said, there's potentially a need for it in Wales. The Town and Country Planning Association, we've done a few pieces of work in England and Northern Ireland, and quite extensively actually in England, and we haven't actually done anything in Wales, but we know that there is definitely a need for it because practitioners are asking us questions about, well, how do you do this and that, and we keep referring to the English context, which isn't very, very relevant. But in terms of the actual document then, so it was quite a long process. So obviously we were commissioned back in March 2016 to do this piece of work, and that resulted in a workshop that we did in Cardiff back in May or so, and that was quite useful to gain some insight into what's happening in Wales. We do recognise that there are lots of good work happening already in Wales, and we're not trying to say there's nothing happening in Wales, but I think it's more like, there's a baseline, and from here we'll move forward in providing more guidance for Welsh practitioners. And then through July, August, we did a period of drafting, revisions, consultations with key stakeholders, and then finally resulting in this document. It's quite an accessible document. The whole point of this document is you're not meant to be reading it from back to front, so it's not bedtime reading. You pull out resources or sections as you would like, and it's relevant to you in your day-to-day jobs. So there are a few sections in this document, but there are three key elements. The first key element is that if you do want to know how to get involved in the planning system, either as a town planner or non-town planner, then there are two sections, or actually one whole section in there around how to get involved in the planning system, both in the local development plan and also in planning application. So there are two elements of the planning system, not just on the master planning elements of it. My advice or my kind of information to all the practitioners across anywhere really is to get involved as soon as you can in the planning process and not wait until the master planning process, because by that time it's a bit too late. And as Stuart said, the planning system is plan-led, it's led by national planning policy, so the earlier you can get on to the national and local policy context, the easier it will be for you to influence the outcomes at the end. The other section is if you want to be involved in the public health process, and it's quite a thinner section actually. But if you're a planner, again, non-planner, want to see how you can involve town planners and others in the health process, then there's a section on that. And then finally, there's a whole section on looking at how you might want to think about health and well-being, environment, planning issues in the new wellbeing duty. And again, we're not trying to duplicate or preempt national guidance around the wellbeing duty, but we try to complement what the Welsh Government had produced for that. So there's a document, and there's a whole set of resources on there, but there's a key diagram on there that's, again, like I said, if you want to know more about, say, influencing local policy or commenting on a planning application, then there's the kind of good diagram, overarching diagram for you to kind of jump into different things on the diagram. But basically, it's structured around the whole Q&A thing. So if you have a question, hopefully that's in there as well. But the idea is to give you some answers or signposting you to different elements of guidance from Liz's team or others across Wales. you're not meant to see this diagram, and we did quite well to visually and physically fit it all into one page. But that shows you what's so important to have really strong national policy. But this resource is one of the key resources in the document. Basically, as Stuart said, the planning system in Wales and anywhere else in the UK is policy-led. Whatever national policy tells you to do, you do it. Whatever it says you don't do, you kind of don't do it. That's the kind of general idea. But this checklist of this figure would basically give you an idea of the key policies in planning policy Wales. And we have updated this to take into account the November edition of PPW. But essentially, that gives you the key themes around transport, environment, food environment, health impact assessments that you can actually use to engage with your planners or vice versa. It's not meant to be an authoritative or definitive resource. You can actually adopt this to your local circumstance. So if you want to add other policies that's non-planning policy in there as well, you can do so. But that is a good starting point. If you don't know how to engage with planners and where to start, this is a really good resource. And there's a whole section on active travel on there, and actually planning policy Wales is actually quite strong on this. And I do take the point that if there's no policy around takeaways, that it's quite challenging to get it through the planning process. I mean, in England, there is no national policy around takeaways, but local authorities manage to, go around the whole process and actually implement policies around takeaways. So there are ways of going about doing so, but you need to know where you can actually make the influence, and the local policy is where you do so, not at the master planning stage. So finally then, acknowledgement. So I will go into a bit more detail the whole practical resources during the whole afternoon workshop. But I think acknowledgement is a collaborative process. We didn't do it on our own. We were not imposing a way of doing things here in Wales. We were saying, well, this our lessons from England, other areas are X, Y, and Z. What are you guys doing in Wales? And so we worked with these stakeholders and others in putting together this resource. So it's very much a teamwork product. So I won't go through them all, but basically thank you for all your hard work and contributions to this document. It's stronger as a document, as a collaborative document than a TCPA document. So I really do acknowledge your contributions for that. So that's my presentation. If you do have any questions and you're not attending the workshop this afternoon, please come and grab me during lunch, and I'm happy to explain to you the whole planning process if you want to over lunch. But I do have a few copies, and you can get copies from me as well. Hopefully that's okay for my initial presentation. So thank you for your time.